Hello, my Earth Wars friends. I'm your host, CF, and here we are with Base Building Guide Part 5. It's all about that base. We've gone over the fundamentals and concepts of base building, and we're going to see it in action now with the Earth Wars base editor. But first, we gotta do the disclaimer. In Earth Wars, there isn't a Tfue base layout that is 100% impervious. There is always going to be a weakness or vulnerability in any base layout. The longevity of your base depends on several factors. However, even accounting for these factors in your layout, you are still going to have some form of a weakness in your base. It may be more difficult to defeat, but it is defeatable. Here we are on the base editor, nice blank canvas, all debris has been cleared, and we're scrolling through the base editor, and it can be temperamental, so as you're scrolling it can click on a building that you don't want to add to your map right now. That's fine. You can go ahead and use the remove button and it removes your map. You can also avoid clicking randomly, as you're going to see. It'll just randomly place buildings on your map. It's not too strategic, it's not too organized. I mean, putting walls all against each other and then putting outposts at the top and at the bottom, and especially putting your HQ up front. Randomly just clicking the base editor is not going to work. But while we're here, we should also mention that you can select multiple items in your base by using the multi button, and you can move multiple buildings around at one time. So it helps to help organize and clean up your base. I've jumped ahead here a little bit. I've started laying out some walls. I did them from the edges in, capped off the edges like we had discussed in previous videos. I've added some buildings here to help flesh out the idea, added some harvesters to help draw the bots into the base so that we can begin to attack them. We'll have some additional buildings coming up. I've got a combiner beacon in place, some more harvesters. These are all designed to draw the enemy squad into your base. We're going to be putting some defenses in place here. We've got our autocannons up front here. We've got our mortars in the back. Consider their range. You can click on them to see what their range is, and I've got a couple of mortars here landing on the landing pad. I'm putting in some laser turrets because as the bots are attracted to the harvesters, they'll get pummeled by both the mortars, the autocannon, and the laser turret. So these are a form of clusters that can help out with helping defend your base initially, both short range and long range attacks. Plus, as they move up, they're going to trigger these outposts that we've also posted on this base, and possibly even trigger that combiner outpost because it's got a good range and a good radius there. So it could end up triggering a lot of defenses right from the start. One very important thing you need to do is save your base layouts often. And what's even nice with the base layout editor is you can save a blank layout. So you can always have a fresh canvas to work from. But you do always want to save often. And we're going to scroll through some of our buildings now. We're going to look at defending and fortifying the front. We're going to put a couple of spider mines up front here, and we're going to kind of get them a little hidden. And keep in mind, spider mines and the stasis mines, since they're one by one buildings, they can be somewhat cumbersome to track with and place, and they can be problematic, especially in the editor. Another great thing to do with these is hide them behind walls, because remember, you're looking down at a base, so you're not always going to see things behind the walls. So a great little strategy, part of the devious strategies that we went over in the guide, are, hiding your spider mines, hiding your stasis mines. So we can get those placed so that the enemy can see a couple of them coming on, but they won't see the ones that are hitting them from the side. And like I said, you're going to want to place your long-range weapons farther back in the base, about the midline of the base. You don't want them all the way in the back so they don't reach anything, but you want to try to keep them out of range of gunners and specials that have a long range. They're going to be susceptible to air attacks it's going to happen. But you want to make sure that they've got good range, that they've got good coverage over other defenses, over outposts, after your little traps that you're setting in your base. Ensure that, hey, if they come around here, is it going to set off my combiner beacon? Are they going to trigger that? Are they going to get pummeled by other defenses? These are all things that you want to take into consideration. You really want to be careful with your building placement or weapons placement or any of your base layout placements. You don't want to have, say, a row of missile launchers like I have here. So we're going to change that out, and maybe we'll throw in a beam laser. There's strategy behind this, because as the bots are coming into your base, and it has a very good range, you want them to be pummeled from various directions. Now, yes, I know the beam laser is a single direction weapon, but at the same time, they're going to be getting hit by some autocannons and some laser turrets and some mortars and outpost bots. But you also want to attack them when they're starting off. So we're going to be putting some stasis mines right off on the launch pad. If you don't apply a power core to them, they will stun the enemy. If you have a power core on them, it can attract your weapons to let them know that somebody's coming in and will target them. It will also help alleviate some of the stress up front from initially and pummel your enemies. You can also click on the info button and see the ranges of all your buildings, see if there's any gaps, any loopholes, any exploitable areas currently in your base while you're designing and developing. So you can help optimize and strategize your base a lot better than you normally would. And again, like I said, you want to be able to hide your defenses. You don't want to put all your stasis mines up front, because that'll give it away to the enemy. But as they progress up the base, they'll see a gap, and they'll either assume there's a mine or that's just a free space in the base. And you can trap them in there and pummel them with other mines or other defenses. And again, like I said, hide them behind the walls. They're hard to see. So as the person is scouting your base, if they are scouting your base, they may or may not see them. It's all about surprise attack. And you can see how everything comes together. That big white zone there, that's your kill zone. That's where everything is going to hit those enemy bots. So building placement is just as much as a strategy as who you have in your outposts. Okay, now that we've built up the front of the base to help slow down and hopefully stop the opposing team from coming onto our base, we got to concentrate on the middle and the back of the base. You can use other buildings like my helio harvester here to help keep alignments in with your base if you want. Obviously, I may move that harvester out of the way at some point, but right now I'm concentrating on the back of the base. And you really want to defend the back of your base, especially because that's ultimately where your headquarters is. And the object is, of course, not to let your headquarters fall. So you want to lure up that area with all kinds of buildings that you can. And this is where it becomes very crucial. We starved our enemies at the beginning of this battle. Now they're going to want these buildings. They're going to want to push forward because now we've got harvesters, which are like +3 ability points. And we want to keep these as much out of the way, but also use them as bait so that we can draw them into our defenses, into our outposts, and stop them and slow them down. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but it's not going to be too difficult either. You've got to keep considering how you want to arrange your buildings and defend your headquarters. Like here we've got an autocannon on either side. We're working on our harvesters to arrange them so that we can optimize our building spaces, because again, these are going to be the high ability buildings that you're going to need, especially towards the end of the battle. Just because this is the middle and the back of our base does not mean that we can't apply other strategies to it, like baiting our base and ensuring that other strategies can be put in play here, such as more clustering. I know I said in the past that we wanted to avoid clusters, but as your base gets higher and bigger and larger, you're going to eventually have to cluster your base. But here we can also build some traps with our baiting, and we're going to have to turn around and make some adjustments to it, of course, as we progress down this road and continue to flesh out the back of our base. But as you can see, once you start getting things lined up and it starts to fill out, you can see the end of the road is coming, and it's getting better and it's getting cleaner, and it's going to look a little busy, but it will eventually pan out for you. And like I said, continue using these strategies that we've used up front of baiting your base, of directing enemies into areas that you want them to be in. Another way to look at this is, as you're designing and laying it out, how would you attack your base? What squads would you bring in? What strategies would you employ? How would you try to beat your base? That's always a good key to think about when you're designing your base. We're going to start building up some additional clusters in the back of our base. We're going to do a shield gen cluster, which will also contain outpost clusters and weapons clusters. And you're going to see how it all begins to flesh out as we continue on down this road. You're going to see that as we refine and get this thing structured up right, these clusters are going to be hard to beat. Obviously, continually check in on your base. See where the radiuses of weapons and defenses are. See where things are going to get tripped or triggered up. Ensure that there are very little overlap in your defenses and in your outposts. Make sure that they are covered from virtually every angle that you can. As you're looking over and you see these grid lines and these info lines on your base, they can help you also ascertain where to place certain buildings, like in this case a laser turret, or in other cases more high value buildings like a missile launcher or a combiner lab, or any of the utility buildings that you're going to be using as bait in the back of this base that you want to use, so that these enemies come to them and they concentrate on them and not your defenses. Use the base editor info and see where the weak spots and the thin areas in your base are and fortify them. Continuously run in the back of your mind, how would I attack this? What advantage will this give me? Will this be covered if I rush a team up here, or if I launch a bot here? Or what happens if this building disappears? What's covered? How is it in place? What other areas can I cover with this? You've got to keep all of these things in mind when you're laying out your base. Cover buildings that you anticipate on being destroyed, like build bots or stasis mines or harvesters. You've got to take a lot of these things into account when you're laying out your base, because hey, if this is gone, where does this open up a weakness in my base? How does this open up a weakness in my base? what can I do to cover that weakness? Cover all your bases. As you're finishing up your base design and putting buildings in place, either keeping the symmetry together of your base or trying to reduce the exposure of high value buildings like combiner labs and space bridges, you can also use those as bait because they are high value. Draw your enemies into them, get them to trip over them, and target some defenses with them. There's many aspects that you can do. Also, good pro tip, keep that info screen toggled so that you can see where all the buildings are placed and how they are going to get triggered with various different defenses. You want to keep that base baiting so that your enemies continually go after what these are perceived high value targets and stay away from your defenses so that you can get them to fall quicker. Once you finish up the last touches of your base layout and return to the normal base view, click on your outposts, see if the bots that you want in them is in the proper position. If not, you don't have to change the bots. You can just change the position of the building and put them right where you want them so that your outpost bots don't have to be changed out, just the position of the outpost. You can do that with any other building on your base once you're finished laying it out. If you stayed this long, thank you, my Earth Wars friends. Base building isn't an easy topic to cover. I hope you enjoyed my base building guides or any of my videos. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and share. It truly helps. Anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments. I've been your host, CF, and this concludes my base building guide. For now. Keep up the heroic nonsense, my friends.